Hello and welcome to this special video exploring the intersection between science and Hinduism. Many people may not realize that Hinduism, one of the most oldest and influential religion on this planet, contains teachings and ideas that were ahead of their time, such as time dilation and the theory of multiverse, that have now been validated by modern science. In this video, we'll take a closer look at how this ancient religion has influenced and anticipated modern scientific discoveries, and how this ancient religion has always been deeply rooted in a spirit of inquiry and exploration. Let me start by saying that this video is not just about Hinduism. This video is about the knowledge and history of us humans. Knowledge which is not new, but rather not known to majority of people. Just to give you an example, Hanuman Chalisa was written in 16th century by Tulsidas ji, and there is a verse that goes like,
Jug sahasra jojan par bhanu, lilyo tahi madhur phal janu. Manje, jug 12,000 saal, sahasra 1,000, jojan 8 मील, और भानु
हाँ मायता है सूर्य।
अब तीनों को गुना कर, युग सहस्त्र जोजन क्या हुआ?
9,60,000 मील।
धरती से सूरज तक का फासला, और ये सब हनुमान चालीसा जैसी प्राचीन किताब में दर्ज है।
This single line, written in 16th century by Tulsidas ji, described the time when Hanumanji thought that the sun is a giant laddu and flew towards it to eat it, and the accurate distance that Hanumanji traveled from earth to reach the sun. And this all was written before the invention of telescope that happened in 17th century. Curiosity of the unknown is the first step in science. And I grew up with this ideology and a curious mind that made me spend countless nights sleeping on a rooftop under stars and thinking, how big is this universe? And if there is something at the end of this universe? What if there is a wall at the end of the universe? But I was not the only one with this question. Similarly, around 1500 years ago, a Roman philosopher wrote a book called Lucretius on the nature of things. In that book, he beautifully asked the reader a simple question. Imagine you're shooting an arrow outward to what you see as the universe. Now, either the arrow will keep going or it will hit a wall. At this point, it's either the edge of the universe, or if the arrow keeps going, that means the universe is extending beyond what you thought was the edge of the universe. Now imagine if you stand on top of that wall and shoot another arrow, there will only be two possible outcomes. Either the arrow will hit another wall, at which point there might be something beyond the wall, or the arrow will keep going to the vastness of space. This question is very common, and I'm sure you must have had similar thoughts in your mind at some point in your life. And the scientific answer to this question is the ever-expanding universe to infinity. And I'll give you a new modern approach to this theory a bit later in this video. But these questions are the reason we possess all the scientific knowledge that we have today. But it was not always like that. Denial of the unknown is the paramount in human evolution. And we have seen the same behavior again and again. Every time someone tries to come up with a new theory, new discovery, or have a courage to say something beyond religious belief. Up until few hundred years ago, the Western world believed that the earth is flat and subscribed to a geocentric theory, which means that the earth is in the center of the universe and everything revolves around this earth. But in Hindu Vedic cosmology, the word for geography is bhugol. Gol means round, study of something which is round. When Vishnuji took the earth out of the sea in his Varaha avatar, it was round, it was goal. When Jashoda Mata saw the entire universe inside the mouth of Shri Krishna ji, all the planets were round, they were goal. While Vedas talk about round earth and a heliocentric theory for thousands of years, a young Italian monk named Gennaro Bruno was burned alive just because he dared to talk about round earth only 400 years ago.
I have come to present a new vision of the cosmos. Copernicus was right to argue that our world is not the center of the universe. The Earth goes around the sun. It's a planet just like the others. But Copernicus was only the dawn. I bring you the sunrise. Outrageous! The stars are other fiery suns made of the same substance as the Earth. Reject antiquity, tradition, faith, and authority. Let us begin anew by doubting everything we assume has been proven.
Heretic! Infidel!
Your God is too small!
You are found guilty of questioning the Holy Trinity and the divinity.
Bruno was burned alive just because he dared to talk about the truth. I know you might be thinking that why I'm telling you about all these old stories. What's the relevance of these stories with this video and with the story of Hinduism? The answer is simple. I want you to understand the importance of asking questions. The freedom of asking questions is the key part for scientific discoveries. One of the verses in Upanishad says, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, which means start asking questions now. At least start asking questions now. Asking questions is one of the most important part in science. And Hinduism is all about questioning everything. And it's all about giving the freedom to ask questions. What we know so far is based on our horizon of how far we can see. And this theory of 13.8 billion year old universe comes from the light that has reached us yet. But if you know anything about the Big Bang Theory, then I'm sure you had this question in your mind about what was there before the Big Bang.
Here's the thing that I've always wanted to ask someone like you. What do you think was happening before the Big Bang?
Yeah, it's a deep question and a subtle one. And there's sort of two ways that I like to think about that question. One is it could be that the Big Bang was an interesting event, but not the first event in the totality of reality. It could have been the first event that sparked the expansion of our part of space. But it could be that there's a grander realm of space within which we sit as a small part, and that grander realm may have been there for a far longer period of time. It may have experienced its own Big Bangs, maybe a collection of Big Bangs that may extend infinitely far into the past. So it could be that the answer to the question of what happened before the Big Bang is a lot of other Big Bangs or a lot of other quantum events that were taking place in a larger landscape of reality than we have direct access to.
Okay, so now you're saying that there may have been other Big Bangs in other realities. Interesting. You know who else kept saying the same thing for centuries? Hinduism. You see, the theory of creation of this universe in Hinduism is based on the life of Brahma. And Brahma creates a new universe each day of his life that gets dissolved by the night. And Brahma has a lifespan of 100 Brahma years. But we'll discuss about this in detail a bit later in this video. For now, let's hear what Carl Sagan had to say about Hinduism. And if you don't know anything about Carl Sagan, then I would highly recommend you watch the series Cosmos by both Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson. But of course, after watching this video.
The Hindu religion is the only one of the world's great faiths dedicated to the idea that the cosmos itself undergoes an immense, indeed an infinite, number of deaths and rebirths. It is the only religion in which the timescales correspond, no doubt by accident, to those of modern scientific cosmology. Its cycles run from our ordinary day and night to a day and night of Brahma, 8.64 billion years long, longer than the age of the Earth or the Sun, and about half the time since the Big Bang. And there are much longer timescales still.
It is the only religion in which the time scale corresponds to the modern cosmology. That's what Carl Sagan said. Don't you think it's our duty as a human species, as a curious species, to talk more about a religion, to explore more about a religion that talks about cosmos on a grand scale? No matter by accident, it's still our duty to ask more questions about it. Science has limitations, and to believe what we know today is the definitive answer would be an insult of science. The nature of science is to find things we don't know about and to question everything until we find answers. And usually these answers will lead us to the next big question. And this is how we progress. This is how science progresses. So let's take a scientific approach here and ask, what is Hinduism and why it is so important for us to preserve all the knowledge and to start learning from it. The problem with humanity is the belief that a single book can contain entire knowledge of this universe, and the denial to believe on anything beyond that. And this is why Hinduism is not a religion. It's the combination of knowledge and a way of life. I'm a Hindu by religion, but there is no Hinduism. There is no origin story of Hinduism like any other religion. There is not even a word Hinduism written in any of our ancient scriptures. It's the name given to the philosophy of life by modern philosophers. The base of Hinduism is Vedas, envisioned by great rishis and sages thousands of years ago. And they were not written, but memorized and passed on to generations as mantras.
Of all the great collection of Sanskrit sacred texts, known collectively as the Vedas, the oldest is the Rig Veda. It comprises about 1,000 archaic chants and hymns, older even than Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, preserved over an immense period of time by oral transmission. This is the oldest surviving written text of the Rig Veda.
Vedas are the oldest written document on this planet, yet the least discussed document on this planet. Ask yourself this big question, why? And as I said in the beginning, this video is not about your religion or my religion. Whatever religion you and me both follow came way after all this. So let's ask this big question to understand what Hinduism is to someone who might be able to explain it in simple ways.
Hinduism is a Sanatan Dharma. What it is, briefly I can explain in this way that it's a bond between man and the nature. And how can I describe this bond? There are 5 billion years we have spent in this evolutionary process. Out of 5 billion years, 3 billion years were just pre-biological evolution. 1 billion years for biological evolution, 500,000 years for human evolution. And just in the last 15 to 20,000 years we have spent on civilization. So in this 5 billion years journey, whatever we have learned, our ancestors has learned, and all those practices which they have learned, that how can we become an homogeneous part on this planet and live peacefully with other human beings, animals, plants, rivers, all those practices collectively, that is called Hinduism.
The bond between man and nature is Hinduism. It's very simple, but very deep when you think about it. Now let's dive deep in science and discuss some of the most complicated scientific discoveries such as time dilation and the general theory of relativity. Someone told me when I was young that if we go so far away from Earth and build a giant telescope and look back at Earth, we might see dinosaurs roaming on the surface of this planet. Of course, we have to go back few million light years away from Earth, but still, past will look like present.
If you look far out into the universe, you're looking way back in time.
Time is not as strong as we think it is. And that's what Albert Einstein proved with his general theory of relativity.
What is time? A deceptively simple question, yet it is the key to understanding relativity. It is also the reason my hair is going grey. When we describe motion, we do so as a function of time. 10 meters per second, 100 miles per hour. But the mathematical description of velocity is moot unless we can define time. Is time universal? In other words, is there an audible tick-tock throughout the galaxy? A master clock, so to speak, forging ahead like Mozart's metronome? The answer, my friends, is no. Time is not absolute. In fact, for us believing physicists, the distinction between the past, present, and future is but a stubborn illusion.
The story of this video started when I watched the movie Interstellar back in 2014.
Every hour we spend on that planet will be 7 years back on Earth. That's relativity, folks.
But that time, I remembered something. My sister told me something when I was 10 years old, that the time works differently on Brahmalok and on the Indralok than it does here on planet Earth. Although I was intrigued by this idea for a long time, but like everyone else, I thought this is just mythology, which has no scientific base behind it. But just like the movie Interstellar, Hinduism is full of stories based on time dilation and based on the fact that the time works differently on different lokas than it does here on planet Earth. The first story is of Lord Brahma and Lord Krishna. One day, Lord Krishna was playing and having lunch with his friends in the forest of Gokul, and Lord Brahmaji came down from Brahmalok to Gokul just to test Lord Krishna to see whether he is a supreme being or not. Now, to test Krishnaji, Brahmaji played a trick and took all his friends along with their cows and calves with him to Brahmalok, thinking that Lord Krishna would be worried on earth.
Ah, so it is you, Brahma, who wishes to play with me. I have appeared on the earth on your call. And now, even you are pretty bewildered.
Now Krishna being Krishna, he understood all of this and he divided himself in the form of all his friends and cows. According to Lord Brahma, he took these friends of Krishna for only few seconds, and when he went back to earth to see how Krishna is doing, he was shocked because according to the theory of relativity of time, a year had passed on earth. When Brahmaji returned to earth, he saw that all the kids he had just left behind in Brahmalok are now playing with Lord Krishna. Lord Brahma got confused on seeing this sight and he realized the true nature of Krishnaji. The time of Brahmaji and Brahmalok is a very interesting concept in Hinduism and perhaps one of the most important concepts of time in Hinduism. But that will take a separate video for me to explain how time works in Brahmalok and Brahmaji's life, since Brahmaji creates a new universe every day and has a lifespan of 100 Brahma years, which is equivalent to billions of years in human time. But let's not talk about this and move to the next story of Raja Muchukand. Raja Muchukand was the king of Ishwaku clan and he was so brave that even Indradev once asked for his help in Devashur Sangram. He gracefully decided to help Indradev in the battle and fought for a year and ultimately won the battle for Indralok. Indradev was so happy he asked Muchukand to wish for anything, but Muchukand simply said that he is a big king on earth and he has everything that one can wish for. All he needs now is a permission to go back to his home where his kingdom and his family must be eagerly waiting for him. Indradev got shocked and sad to hear Muchukand talk about his family and his kingdom. And he told Muchukand that time moves differently on Indralok than it does on planet Earth. 1 year that Muchukand spent in Swarglok is equivalent to many yugas on Earth. And there is no one on Earth right now that even remembers him. This story was so similar to the movie Interstellar, where the hero goes to a different planet and spends just 1 hour to come back and find his own daughter is older than him. But Raja Muchukand was a bit unlucky. He spent an entire year in Indralok just to come back to Earth to find there is no one on this planet that even remembers him. The next story is very similar to this one. This story is of King Kakudami and his daughter Revati, who traveled to an entirely new dimension and came back to Earth in a completely new era of time. In mid-Satya Yuga, there was a king named Kakudami. Kakudami's daughter Revati was so beautiful and talented that the king thought there is no man on earth worthy for his daughter. Kakudami decided to seek advice from the creator Lord Brahma himself and went to Brahmalok. But upon arrival, Lord Brahma was listening to the musical performance by Gandharva. So both the king and his daughter decided to wait. Once the music performance was over, Kakudami went to Brahmaji and bowed and presented his list of suitable husband for his daughter. At which Brahmaji laughed loudly and explained time flows differently in Brahmalok than it does on planet Earth. The time that they have spent here listening to the musical performance, 27 Chaturyugas have passed on Earth. And Lord Brahma said, the list of the shortlisted candidates that you have are long gone, along with their sons and grandchildren. No one even remembers their names as well. Even your kingdom and your family is gone by the hands of time. 27 Chaturyugas means 116,640,000 years on earth. That's a long time. Now Kakudami was devastated to hear this, but Brahmaji consoled him and told him that Lord Vishnu is incarnated on earth right now by the name of Balram and Krishna. And Brahmaji recommended Balram as a worthy husband of Revati. Kakudami and his daughter then went back to earth, but to their surprise, they were shocked to see not just a lot of time has passed on earth, but the environment, the state of human culture and spirituality has gone down to a lower level. So we have already established the fact that Hinduism knew about the theory of time dilation for thousands of years. But there is another interesting theory of multiverse and parallel universes.
My new book, The Hidden Reality, takes on a grand question. Is our universe the only universe? You see, there's a growing belief among scientists like me that ours may only be one among many universes populating a gigantic cosmos.
What if I tell you that Hinduism knew about the theory of multiverse and parallel universes for thousands of years, and it's written in detail in ancient Hindu scriptures? But before I start talking about the theory of multiverse and parallel universes, let's go back a little and try to understand where does the theory of multiverse comes in modern science. And for this, we need to understand the scale of our observable universe and our place in it. I will take you on a journey of the observable universe that we know so far, from this tiny blue dot that we call home to our neighbor moon, where we landed in 1963, Second line of our address is our solar system. And just as we move a bit further at this point, we'll meet the only man-made object this far from our home, NASA's Voyager 1. Something we should all be proud of. As we move further, we see so many tiny dots, and each one of them is a planet with potential of different form of life unimaginable to us. Next line of our address is Milky Way. Each tiny bright dot you see here is a star, followed by many planets. We are now about 100,000 light years away from Earth. It would take light, the fastest thing there is, about 100,000 years to reach us from Earth. At this point, you will see another galaxy, and we call this a local group. At this vast scale, it's hard to even find our galaxy. Forget about the tiny planet we live on. And it's called the Virgo supercluster. At this scale, each dot that you see is a galaxy. But this entire Virgo supercluster is just a tiny part of our universe. And this is the point where our science stops. Because the light beyond this point hasn't reached us yet in the 13.8 billion year history of universe to observe anything further than this. Many of the scientists in modern science world now suspect that all of this is just a tiny bubble in an infinite ocean of other universes. And that's a multiverse. Mind-blowing, right? The concept of multiverse starts at the point where science has reached its limit. Yet Hinduism has detailed records of multiverse since the beginning. I know this video is already very long, but let's just take the journey and start understanding the stories of multiverse in Hinduism. This first story is again between Lord Brahma and Lord Krishna, where Lord Krishna tries to explain the multiverse to Lord Brahma. One day, Lord Brahma went to Dwarka to visit Sri Krishna ji. Upon arrival, Lord Brahma told the Dwarpal to go and tell Sri Krishna that Lord Brahma wishes to see him. The Dwarpal went and told Sri Krishna, but Sri Krishna replied, "Go and ask him which Brahma is he." When the gatekeeper went back and asked as told, Lord Brahma got puzzled and he said, "I am the only Brahma. Go and tell Lord Krishna that the Chaturmukhi Brahma, the creator of this universe, is at the door." When the Dwarpal conveyed the message, Sri Krishna smiled and said, "Call him in." When Brahma went inside and asked, "Bhagwan, what did you mean by saying which Brahma am I? I am the only Brahma. Is there any other Brahma in this universe apart from me? I created this universe." Lord Krishna smiled, and with his power, he called all the Brahmas from innumerable universes. And the sight was magical, as all the Brahmas kept coming and offered their obeisance to Lord Krishna.
I have made this elaborate arrangement to teach you the entire truth. Behold, I have summoned Brahmas of different universes so you may understand the complete truth about yourself. Of the thousands of universes, you are in charge of just one. There are bigger universes than yours, and Brahmas more powerful than yourself. Things are much bigger and more complex than you can possibly imagine.
There is another story of Sri Ramji and Lord Hanumanji. Everyone knows the relation between Lord Ram and Hanumanji and their love for each other. Lord Hanumanji would never let any harm come close to Lord Ram, let alone the concept of death. Ramayana has an interesting story of Ramji and Hanumanji, where Ramji's incarnation period was about to get over and he called Yam, Lord of Death, to fetch him. But Yam was unable to do that, as Lord Hanuman was guarding the gate of Ayodhya and would not let Yam Devta enter, as Hanuman was committed to keep death away from his lord. Lord Ram was very much aware of this fact and he wanted to confuse Hanumanji so that he would not be present when Yamraj arrives. So one day he dropped his ring in a crack on the face of earth and asked Hanumanji to bring it back. And with his powers, Hanumanji shrunk in size and followed the crack till Patal Lok or Naglok, and then met King of Snakes, Vasuki. And Hanumanji asked him if he has seen a ring, and Vasuki took Hanumanji to the mountain of rings. Hanumanji saw this mountain of rings and realized that all of these rings were of Lord Ram's. He then asked Vasuki, how is it possible? And Vasuki explained that every time a ring falls down here, a monkey comes in search of the ring and Lord Ram on earth dies. Each of these rings here represent a Kal Chakra, and this is not the first time you came here. Vasuki then showed Hanumanji a glimpse of other universes, where in some Lord Ram was still a baby, in other Ramji was fighting Ravan and so on. Hanumanji then realized that his Lord Ram is still alive in so many other universes. And he should not mourn the loss of Lord Ram on this planet. If you have lost someone you loved, then please understand, the time that you have spent with them is still happening, not in this reality, but in other realities. Whatever we have lost is still out there somewhere, and whatever we will gain in this life has already happened in other realities. There is also one short incident in Ramayana that gives us the glimpse of multiverse and parallel universes. When Ramji was going to forest for his Vanvas, Sita ji said that she will also go with him, but Ramji refused and said he will go alone. Hearing this, Sita ji replied that in every Ramayana I am going with you in the forest. Then why you refuse me now? It's not that detailed, but it gives us the glimpse that Sita ji knew about the cycle of life, and Sita ji knew that they have to perform the same act of Ramayana again and again in different parallel universes and different multiverses. I know still all of this sounds like fairy tales, but if you are making a judgment on Hinduism based on how it was cinematically televised back in 90s, then it's not fair. You see, these are not just random fairy tale stories, and Hinduism doesn't stop there. Hinduism have detailed description of how Garbhodak Sai Vishnu creates a new universe with each breath. Each of his breath creates a Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh, in which Brahma creates a new universe each day of his life. Each day of Brahma is called a kalp. Each kalp is equivalent to 3.72 billion human years. Brahma has a lifespan of 100 years, which is equivalent to 311 trillion human years. But he creates a new universe which is slightly different to the last universe. And the order of appearance for Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh changes slightly in each universe. And in our present universe, Vishnu appeared first. And that's why Vishnu Puran is more relevant to our universe right now. You see, whatever Purans that we have in Hinduism belongs to a different kalp, and that's why we have differences in different kalpas, because creation happens differently each day. In some cases, Brahma appears first, in some kalp, Vishnu appears first, and in some kalp, Shiva appears first. That's why we have differences in different stories based on different kalps.
There is the deep and appealing notion that the universe is but the dream of the god, who, after 100 Brahma years, dissolves himself into a dreamless sleep, and the universe dissolves with him. Until, after another Brahma century, he stirs, recomposes himself, and begins again to dream the great cosmic lotus dream. Meanwhile, elsewhere, there are an infinite number of other universes, each with its own god, dreaming the cosmic dream.
I know it's all too much to understand.
Probably turning on this video and feeling very confused. That's okay. It's incredibly confusing stuff, and made worse if you didn't grow up in that tradition of words and names that don't always seem to make sense. However, I do think it's worth thinking about Hinduism, because Hinduism offers us some ideas about time that we'll see coming back over and over again, all the way into modernity.
Okay, I know you might be thinking that, okay, Hinduism had some stories that had some scientific base behind it, but that doesn't mean that Hinduism is real and all these stories in Hinduism actually happened on this planet. I understand, I'm with you on this, but how many stories you would consider as the minimum number for you to change your views on Hinduism? Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Purans, Vedas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and so many other ancient historic documents, of course, historic documents, not mythological documents. All these historic documents have so many stories in them that talks about scientific theories that will blow your mind. Maybe the way of writing of all these stories made you look at Hinduism as fairy tales like Harry Potter. But you know the difference between a drone and an aeroplane. But for the people who wrote these stories thousands of years ago, for them, it all looked like a bird. I'm not saying that all these stories in Hinduism have actually happened on this planet, because we haven't found so much of physical evidence based on Ramayana and Mahabharata and other Hindu stories. But what if these stories actually happen in some other realities, or they happen in a form that we are not actually understanding so far? You have to understand that all these stories were written thousands of years ago, okay? Now, if I talked about these stories before Einstein proved all of this, what would you think of me? You would think and you would look at me as a fool, that a guy is talking about time works differently on different planets. All these concepts are unheard of. Let me be very clear, I'm a pro-science guy, and we have to appreciate all the scientific inventions, and we have to appreciate all the scientists who have put their hard work in creating whatever we have around us. So please keep in mind, I'm in no way questioning the ability and progress of science. I'm merely stating some less known fact about an ancient civilization. I will end this video here with a note that it was not about Hinduism. No matter what religion you follow, this is your history, my history. We should all be equally proud of the fact that even if these are just stories, just fairy tale stories like Harry Potter, someone still wrote about it thousands of years ago. I hope it will create a little bit of spark in you to do your own research. Be curious, because what's life without questions?